Hello everybody. If you clicked on this video, it probably means you saw Peter the Hermit and his army of idiots, which is part 1 of my Peter the Hermit series. If you haven't seen that video, I highly recommend going back and watching it because this video probably won't make a lot of sense to you. For those of you who did watch the video, keep watching this video because it's the second part. Here's a little recap. Peter gets his army together, and then they make it to the Byzantine Empire and Hungary border, and they're trying to cross into the Byzantine Empire. But anyway, my name is Tejas the Almighty, and this is...
And I'm about to do this. Everyone keeps telling me how my story is supposed to go. Nah, I'm gonna do my own thing.
Help! Help! My house is on fire!
Peter and his men just got chased off by the Hungarian soldiers, and now they need to make it across the Hungary-Byzantine border, which means they need to cross the Sava River in order to make it to the Byzantine Empire. Some Byzantine soldiers tried to escort the Crusaders off in an orderly fashion so they won't cause any more trouble. But as we learned before, Peter's men don't do orderly. So they killed the Byzantine soldiers escorting them. After they made it across the Sava River, they traveled to Belgrade, which the Crusaders promptly raided and lit on fire. Belgrade was deserted at the time, so burning it to the ground was A-OK. Now the Crusaders were headed towards the city of Niš. They actually managed to stay in Niš without an issue. That was until some dumbasses in Peter's army decided to light some of Nish's mills on fire as they were leaving. This didn't bode well with their people, so they sent an army after them, and they killed and captured many of Peter's troops as they were leaving. After that, Peter turned his army around and went back to Niš. Now, Peter just wanted to negotiate with the governor of Niš, but as we all know, Peter's men were special. So when they got to Niš, they attacked it. Unfortunately for Peter, Nish's soldiers were actually trained. And they were actual soldiers, so they managed to wipe out a quarter of Peter's men. The Crusaders were forced to flee. They were broke and hungry now. Eventually, the Crusaders made it to Constantinople under the supervision of the Byzantine guards who escorted them. Finally, they made it to Constantinople, where Emperor Alexios was kind enough to give them food. They also met up with Walter and his men. Now, Alexios was a pretty nice guy. He knew the Crusaders were complete assholes and attacked other towns in the Byzantine Empire. And yet, despite this, he still gave them food. Unfortunately, Alexios was also a doormat for trying to be nice to these morons. He asked Peter and his men to wait outside the city until the real Crusaders, who were actual nobles, showed up. He also gave them the option to get ferried over the Bosphorus River, which is very nice. He basically gave them free food, or they could have a free Uber ride across the Bosphorus River. Now, as we all know, Peter's men were special. So they decided to go with a third option, and that was to raid the city of Constantinople. Alexios finally realized that these men were too stupid to be reasoned with. So finally, he got his navy to round them up and ferry them across the Bosphorus. He basically told them to get the hell out. So now Peter and his men were finally on their way to Jerusalem.
I don't need it. I don't need it. I definitely don't need it. I 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 need it!
Now that the Crusaders have crossed the Bosphorus, it was time to
take back the Holy Land!
The minute they stepped onto Muslim soil, can you guess what they did? They started pillaging nearby villages, and that would sometimes include Christian settlements. After pillaging the smaller settlements, the Crusaders set up camp in Civitot. While they were camping in Civitot, the supply of money started to run low. So Peter decided to go back to Constantinople and ask for money. Imagine having the audacity to go back to a city where the king treated you nicely to beg for money after you just killed and looted his people. On top of that, Peter left his army unattended in Muslim territory. Did Peter forget that his army was special and had zero self-control whatsoever? It's like leaving a toddler unattended after giving it a bag of marbles to play with. That kid is definitely going to do something dangerous with those marbles. Anyway, the French Crusaders were not getting along with the German and Italian Crusaders, so they decided to split up. The French were starting to get bored, and we all know what that means. It was time to start pillaging again. They attacked the city of Nicaea. They attacked nearby settlements, pillaging and killing as they went along, which included Christian settlements, of course. The Turks didn't like this, so they sent out troops to attack the French, and the French managed to wipe out the Turkish cavalry that went after them. However, when they got to the city of Nicaea, they were not able to get past the city's walls, so the whole thing seemed kind of pointless. The French didn't see it this way, though. They thought it was a job well done and gave themselves a pat on the back, so now the Germans want a piece of the action. The Germans attacked a fort called Zerigorden, and they actually managed to pull it off. So 1 point for the Germans. They also spared the Christians, unlike the French, so they get an extra point. The fun wouldn't last long though, because now the Turks were pissed, so they sent men to take back Zerigorden. The Germans laid an ambush on the Turks, but they destroyed the Crusaders. The Turks were now at Zerigorden's doorstep, and a siege was held. Unfortunately for the Germans, the only source of water was outside the city, and they were in a desert surrounded by angry Turks. The siege went on for days, and the Crusaders were forced to drink piss and blood in order to survive. Now, piss and blood don't taste very good, so the Germans decided to surrender, and they were completely slaughtered. The Turks decided to send spies into the Crusader camp in Civitot. The spies told the Crusaders that the Germans had not only managed to take over Zerigorden, but also Nicaea as well, and that there was hella bands to be had, so the entire camp decides to go see for themselves. They started to make their way over to their supposed pals. That's when the Turks attacked them in an ambush they had set up. There was an estimated 20,000 men in the French group, and only about 3,000 of those men were able to make it out alive. One of the people killed in the ambush was Sir Walter the Penniless. Rest in peace, Walter. It's ironic that a man named Walter the Penniless died trying to steal money. Amen. And thus ended the People's Crusade.
This is your automated captain. Would you care for more mimosa?
Don't mind if I do. Thanks.
You're welcome. Currently 78 degrees in Nomanasan. Perfect weather for flying.
Peter was schmoozing it up in Constantinople while his men got slaughtered. He found out about his army when some of the survivors came back to Constantinople in boats. I wonder how Peter felt knowing that he'd just gotten tens of thousands of people killed. He probably didn't feel too bad because he ended up meeting with the other real Crusaders. I like to imagine he felt some remorse for it though. I mean, he did manage to get thousands killed. I mean, he also spent months and months with these people, and there were men and women and children in the group. Anyway, he went down to Jerusalem with the Crusaders, and they managed to conquer Jerusalem along with a bunch of other Muslim cities. Peter never really did anything significant with his life after the People's Crusade. He was never given a position of power, which is understandable. And I think he also opened up a church after the Crusade was over, but nothing really happens. Nobody really cares. In my opinion, the Crusades were one of the stupidest times in history. And the People's Crusade had to be one of the dumbest examples. An old guy who had no fighting experience and was just a monk led an army of complete morons through Europe in order to get to Jerusalem. While going through Europe, his army managed to rob and murder thousands of Jews and other Christians, and they managed to essentially get away with it. Then, when they made it to the Holy Land, they get wiped out and only managed to kill a handful of Turks who were the actual enemies. Everyone in this story is a complete dumbass. Peter is stupid for thinking an army of untrained peasants could manage to stand against an army of trained Turkish soldiers. Peter is also an idiot for thinking he, a monk with no fighting experience or shoes, could stand a chance of commanding an army. Emperor Alexios is an idiot for trying to reason with the Crusaders even after they managed to loot his villages and slaughter his people. And the stupidest ones of all were the soldiers for going into debt just to get slaughtered. Not only that, but they managed to kill more of their own allies than they did the actual enemy. They couldn't manage to keep themselves in control for 5 minutes. The only thing, and I mean the only thing, that these people managed to accomplish was causing the Turks to seriously underestimate the Crusaders who came after them. Imagine that, being so pathetic that it causes the enemy to underestimate the actual trained soldiers that come after you. Okay, rant over. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. It would also be awesome if you were maybe to also like and subscribe. If I manage to get any information wrong, feel free to fact check me in the comments, and I mean that. I might do a video on the rest of Crusade, I'm not really sure. Anyway, my name is Tejas the Almighty, and this is a video that I have made for you.